Off the back of that, also Jennifer Armentrout's Covenant series, guys, I'm getting right back into 2012 gold. 14 books I've read so far in 2025. No, wait, no. And book 7 doesn't have a release date. That makes me nervous. Hi guys, it's Sam, and today I want to go through the 14 books I've read so far in 2026. I feel like I've read a really good range of books. They've also all been really good, so I thought we could chat through them and not just do a January wrap up, but also the books I've read so far in February, because they have been bangers. Let's start with January. I read 7 books in January, and I read a mix of YA fantasy, but also some romance and some epic fantasy and some dark romance, so it was a really great time. So we'll start off with the first book I read in 2026, which was A War of Wyverns by S.F. Williamson. This is book 2 in the Language of Dragon series, and it's been compared to Babel meets dragons, basically. And there's a really big translation and language element in it, where the author herself is actually a translator, and she uses a lot of the concepts that she learns in translation and the questions that come up in translation within this book. The premise of the story is that we have a young main character who's really good at languages, and she is used in the war effort to try and translate this dragon language. And this is all set in like an alternative 1920s London where humans and dragons are at war. And so they're like, Viv, the main character, you need to translate this dragon language if we will stand a chance at beating the dragons. And throughout this process of her trying to translate these dragon languages, she learns about, you know, meaning and nuance that is lost when you translate something, the meaning that you sacrifice when you do a translation, and the kind of theories behind, do you translate a language to be exact, or do you translate the language so it makes sense in the language you're translating into? And I really enjoyed all those questions. In fact, I learned so much about translation from these books, and I do agree it feels very much like Babel, but a more accessible version, especially for young adults. I will say this book, the second book, I think was a lot better than the first book. I think it was just so much pacier, so much more exciting. We're kind of expanding the world that this is set in, and we're seeing a lot of character growth in Viv after what happened in the first book, which I really liked. She asks herself all these questions when she's struggling to translate the languages, like, I am meant to be a translator, so who am I if I can't do this? And I think that's really important when you're a young person kind of trying to define yourself and asking yourself, like, who do I want to be? Like, who am I outside of my passions and my abilities? Like, who am I at my soul? And I really like that, so I am really excited for the third book. And like I said, this is a great place to start if you're a young adult who wants to read fantasy, or you have a young person in your life who wants to start reading fantasy. Obviously, if you're older, you can still enjoy this. I still enjoyed this, but the main character does feel quite young. The writing does feel young in terms of like its accessibility, I suppose, and sometimes obviously the characters are going to be childish because they are children, but I kind of enjoyed how fun this was. Like I said, I really enjoyed the language elements, and another thing I really loved, it explores conversations around cultural erasure. There's a group of dragons in this whose language has been suppressed, whose kind of customs and traditions have had to be suppressed because it didn't go along with the norm. So I really like that conversation and how it opens it up to young people, because the more that they learn from a young age, the more they can apply to the world that they live in which cultural erasure is happening every single day. So I would definitely recommend this. I gave it 4 stars, and I think it's a brilliant YA fantasy sequel. Then I did a reread of You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. I rated this 4.5 stars back in 2021, but on my reread I thought this book was so incredible I wanted to give it 10 stars. I think on a reread now I'm older, I could really appreciate how these two love each other on another level, that it's not just about them being romantically in love, but they love every part of each other's soul, each other's very being, the good and the bad, and they accept them anyway. And I think belonging to someone like that is so special. Maybe that's why this book just kind of spoke to me at the right time. I thought that obviously the book was so much better than the film. I finished the book one day before watching the Netflix adaptation, and I love the Netflix adaptation, but I fear nothing will beat book Alex. I could do a whole video on all the things that I think the book did better, but I'll just keep it short and just say I think Alex Nielsen in the book has so much to him that was cut out from the script in the movie, that didn't give him as much depth as he had in here. So many good lines were missed, and so many good scenes and opportunities for Poppy and Alex to really have their love on screen blossom slowly for it to make sense for us. my god, I highlighted so much on my Kindle. There's a scene where, oh my god, I love this scene so much. Kind of like the scene where they're talking about how much they mean to each other. Poppy says, I've never really felt alone since I met you. I don't think I'll ever feel truly alone in this world again as long as you're in it. His gaze softens, holds steady for a beat. Can I tell you something embarrassing? For once, it doesn't occur to me to joke, to be sarcastic. Anything. He runs his hand over the steering wheel in a slow back and forth. I don't think I knew I was lonely until I met you. He shakes his head again. At home, after my mum died and my dad fell apart, I just wanted everyone to be okay. I wanted to be exactly what dad needed and exactly what my little brothers needed. And at school, I wanted to be who everyone wanted. So I tried to be calm and responsible and steady. And I think I was 19 years old the first time it occurred to me that maybe that wasn't how some people lived. That maybe I just was someone beyond who I tried to be. You asked me who I was and it was like the answer came out of nowhere. Sometimes it feels like I didn't even exist before that, like you invented me. When they're saying they love each other in like a platonic way, she's like, I love you too. It's true, but not the full truth. There aren't words vast or specific enough to capture the ecstasy and the ache and love and fear I feel just looking at him right now. Okay, this is making me really want to reread the book. But all that to say, I thought that at its core, this is just a friends to lovers story. I even forgot to say what this book was about. It's a friends to lovers story spanning across, 10, 12 years. You get to see all the summers they've spent together across the years in flashbacks, while also seeing present day where they're rekindling something that went wrong in their friendship. And Poppy's still a little bit in love with him, and he might still be a little bit in love with her. And it all comes out in a really messy kind of crescendo way as the summer is heating up and the feelings are growing and the things that are being left unsaid are building and building up inside of them with this heat, all for it to like come pouring out as the rain falls. And it was just brilliant. I now feel like I need to reread all of Emily Henry's books because I think I read one a year as they were coming out, but I've never reread them all together, so it's really hard for me to think which one is my favourite, and maybe I'll have to do a whole reread and then give you guys a video of my new ranking. But in my head, I kind of thought that Book Lovers was my favourite, but I just need to reread the rest. And to be completely honest with you, I've never read Funny Story, and I think I'll really like that. I mean, idea for the future, but let me know if you also thought that People We Meet on Vacation was so much better in the book. I think a lot of people think that. Even though the film gives so many new scenes and new content for us to kind of lap up and enjoy, and obviously it's an adaptation, so it's never going to be truly, the book. But I was just really sad for some of those lines and those scenes that I was really looking forward to, when they didn't happen. 1,000,000 stars, probably 5 out of 5 stars. And just another great start to the year. So I went from YA fantasy to a romance, and then I went to another romance with The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. This is her newest book coming out in March, and all I can say is I freaking loved it. Prior to this, Yours Truly and Just for the Summer were my top, and I don't know if this kind of is on par with the other two or if it falls slightly below, but I loved the premise. I loved how messy it sounded. It's about Larissa, and Larissa has great chemistry with Chris. They get along so well. They found this dog and they're co-parenting it, and all in all their interests align and they're just like the perfect match. However, Larissa is dating Chris's best friend Mike. Yeah, because on the very first night where she had to pick between the two best friends and which one took her home, Mike was just smiling a little bit more, so she went with him, but not knowing what Chris had going on that night and that he was actually interested in her as well. So by the time they actually speak properly and she realizes that, hey, like, this is a really nice guy, she's already with Mike and she's been with Mike for a while. And I was wondering how Abby Jimenez would kind of handle that really kind of sensitive balance between kind of moving into the cheating trope, and no one wants to read about that. But I think she handled it with such care, where Larissa obviously loves Mike so much, but he is just failing in so many parts of their relationship. They're not even the right people to be together, whereas Chris is really there for her as a friend. He has all these secret feelings. I think Abby Jimenez did really well at keeping it so respectful, and Chris was always rooting for Mike. Chris wanted Mike to be the one for Larissa. He really wanted that for them. It's so messy, and I think if you're someone who loves acts of service, Chris is that person. I think I related to Larissa so much in this because she is someone who is just trying to survive, and I think growing up I had 3 to 4 jobs at a time just because I was trying to make my own money. My family didn't have a lot, and I never wanted to ever have to ask them for money or not be able to do something in the future because I didn't have money. So I was always trying to hustle, and that's exactly what Larissa's trying to do. So I kind of loved that energy from her. She does not care how tired she is. She does not care that, you know, she's gonna miss things. She needs to provide for her and her mum, and I really kind of like to see that in a book. And Chris is someone who is arguably quite comfortable. He just goes to his job, comes home, but he has so much love to give, and as soon as he realizes that he can help Larissa in so many small ways, even just like shoveling the snow from the driveway for her, or like bringing her around her favorite drink every now and again when they like meet up to talk about books, it is just so sweet. And it's a different type of love that I haven't seen in many books really, because it's like the love for someone in a friendship, loving someone and caring for them and trying to lift them up without, I guess, romantically getting involved straight away. I just found it really refreshing and really fun. I think fans are gonna go feral for like there are some scenes in this that are kind of ridiculous, and I don't really want to spoil them because I think they're really fun to experience. But just keep these words in mind: peanut allergy, bin bag, that's it. This book made me laugh, it made me tear up, it made my heart ache, and it gets a 5 stars from me because I just had the most brilliant time. I as well think that this came along at a really nice time where I just wanted a little dose of Abby Jimenez in a very dark winter, and she provided exactly what I needed. So I would definitely recommend this. This does link in nicely with Say You'll Remember Me, but you don't have to have read that to read this. It's just kind of like you'll recognize some characters from there in this. I do think you should read the Abby Jimenez universe in order just to experience all the little Easter eggs, because there are more Easter eggs in this. There are many, and they made me so happy. That would be my advice, to read them in order. I think Part of Your World was my least favourite, and then they got so much better from there. So just know that Part of Your World is like 3 stars, but from there, yours truly, Just for the Summer, Say You Remember Me, and then this one. Oh my god, what a brilliant addition to the universe. I'm so happy I got to read this early. This is not the last time you'll hear me talking about this book, and just know that I wholeheartedly recommend it. It's going to be like the perfect summer romance, even though it's coming out in March. I also read it in January, but it's going to be the perfect summer romance. Then I decided to switch it up and read an epic fantasy / murder mystery called The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. I have owned this book since April of last year, and it came out and I was like, oh my god, that's so chunky. Like, it looks pretty. I didn't even read the blurb. I was like, I don't really understand what it's about. I mean, that speaks for itself. I don't read the blurb and then I don't understand what it's about, so then I just leave it. I just leave it on my shelf. But at the end of 2025, everyone had this book on their top reads of the year, and I thought, oh my god, what have I been missing out on? So I decided to start the year with this book, and it didn't disappoint. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I thought it was really refreshing. It's an epic fantasy. We're following 7 contestants who are all competing to become the next emperor, and all of those 7 contenders are representing a different monastery that's based on a different sacred animal. So we've got the raven, the fox, the ox, the tiger, what else? The monkey, the bear. So I was like, another trial. I'm not sure if I'm really into this. But the trials are like interesting trials of kind of problem solving and how things can be worded. So they might be asked to do something, but you need to look at what they're saying so carefully to actually understand what's implicitly being asked. And I love like an intelligent kind of trial. So some of them were like physical, but they had a little intellectual twist every now and again, so it always kept me on my toes. And our main character, Nima, she is a really interesting character to follow. She's neurodivergent as well, which I loved, and she accidentally ends up representing the Raven contenders, even though she's a scholar. And while she's a contender, she's also been asked to look into the murder of the previous Raven contender. And so there's this whole plot that opens up that is not only her competing in the trials, but it's also her trying to kind of work out this murder mystery. And I've realized I really like murder mysteries in fantasy. I love Belladonna by Adeline Grace, and I also really liked Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber, which had an undertone of a mystery / thriller vibe. I think all these books that kind of straddle 2 genres are always really fun, so I think this book did it really well. I was thrown off because there are a lot of chapters in this book where it's told from the point of view of a raven. or a flock of ravens. And I thought, what the helly is going on? I'm not sure if I understand this. But over time I actually came to really enjoy that perspective of the raven. They were my favourite chapters. I also think this book is so funny in the same way that The Night and the Moth was really funny, with the character Bartholomew, who's like a talking gargoyle that goes along on the quest. This book has a talking raven who is, like, quite frankly very pathetic. He's a solitary raven and he's so lonely and sad and just wants company. Also is so, like, endearing in a way because he's so pathetic. Really like this. The only reason why it wasn't quite a 5-star for me is because I think at times the pacing could have been a little bit better, maybe a little bit faster, or just cut down a bit, because it was very long and at times I just feel like we're cycling through the same kinds of conversations, which I never really enjoy. And I do wish there was a little bit more world building. I think the world building is fantastic, but I think sometimes I just needed a little bit more to bridge the gap, or for things to kind of make more sense. I do think in the next book, if we venture more into the world, I think we will get that. I do think it's a very clever book. I can't wait for the sequel. I honestly would have read it back to back if it was already out. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you're someone that likes epic fantasy, if you're someone who wants to read something slightly different, if you're sick and tired of fantasy romance and you kind of want to delve into something a little bit darker. This book is certainly quite dark at times. Just know that it's a really fun romp. Like, I had fun. It's long and it's very detailed and it's intricate, and yes, there's a mystery, but also, like, there's a lightness to it that I haven't found in a book in a while. Maybe since The Night and the Moth. I thought The Night and the Moth was just like equal parts gothic and atmospheric and dark, but also very light and very fun at the same time, and I think this book gives that similar vibe as well. Then I decided to pick up Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan because I was watching the show, and as soon as Tyson came on screen in season 2, my brain just kind of opened up, and I felt like I was unlocking memories from when I first read the books when I was younger. I think I read them in like 2012, 2013. And I was like, oh my god, like, things are coming back to me. And now I want to press pause on the Disney TV show and just quickly reread all the books. That's what I decided to do. I decided to pick up book 1 in the series, and I also immersive read this on audiobook. I think it's on like Libby as well as BorrowBox if you use the library audiobook service. So it was really easy to get my hands on the audiobook copy of this, and I just had so much fun. I had so much fun. It made me realize that the Disney TV adaptation is really kind of faithful to the story in the book, but the book has Percy's inner thoughts, and Percy's inner thoughts are in fact hilarious. So I just really enjoyed kind of being back in a world that I knew, but then I had forgotten the details of, or seeing more of the characters and some scenes that, I mean, they showed on the show but were just even more funny when you experience the book. Like Krusty's waterbed emporium in the book is just, I mean, in the show it was funny, but in the book it's even funnier. So I am going to be reading Sea of Monsters very soon. It's on my February TBR, but I gave the first book 4 stars. I think it's great, and the fact that now I picture all the characters in the book as the cast from the TV show just shows how perfect they've done the casting. I can't wait to keep reading. I'm really excited. I remember being absolutely ruined in the Battle of the Labyrinth, so yeah, can't wait to experience more. After reading that children's book, I decided to do a dark romance called The Wolf and the Crown of Blood by Elizabeth May. I've never read a book by Elizabeth May, but I thought that this one was a good place to start because a lot of my mutuals had been saying this was really good. The romance has done really well. I thought that the comp titles on it were really interesting. It says it's inspired by Beauty and the Beast, Eros and Psyche, and it's perfect for fans of Phantasma, Guild and Quicksilver, and I just thought, yeah, you know what, that is so me. If you're someone who likes dark romance but in a fantasy setting with very much emphasis placed on the romance as the main part of the story, I think you'll really like this. I gave this book 3.75 stars, and the reason why I didn't quite hit like the 4 mark for me is that over the course of all of these pages, I'd say the plot maybe progressed like 10% of what it could. I think at the end of this book it really leaves the door open to explore a lot more in book 2, but thinking about where we started off to where we were at the end, nothing had really happened. A lot had happened within the romance, but nothing had really really moved in terms of where I think the book is going to end up. So that would be my only complaint. But if you're someone who just wants to read it for the romance unraveling and exploring the tension, exploring their connection, I think this is a great choice. But for me, I think I just needed a little bit more plot, and then it would have been a good balance. This also was quite dark. I don't often read dark romance, but I did really enjoy this. Just check the trigger warnings before you go into it. It also has a really fun premise. So our main character is like a princess of this kingdom basically, and she has to be repeatedly sacrificed over and over and over in order to feed the protective layer around their kingdom from the beings outside. And obviously being a constant sacrifice, because she's sacrificed, brought back to life, sacrificed, brought back to life, and because of that repeated coming back from the dead, that's obviously left quite a mark on her. She's dealing with a lot of trauma from having that experience her entire life, even from when she was a child that was happening. So when she finally comes out of that situation through the help of a very hot god, she is slowly coming to realize who she is outside of just being a sacrifice for her kingdom. She has dreams and she wants to love and she wants to belong, and she is a person at the end of the day outside of being the subject to sacrifice for her kingdom. And I really like that exploration within her character, and I love that the romantic storyline kind of like gently held her along without it being the driving force for her to do that. So yeah, I thought it was great. I thought the love interest was like the perfect snarky enemies to lovers kind of love interest, but I wouldn't say that he's really left a mark on me. It's been a few weeks since I finished this now, and I don't really think that he is a love interest that would often cross my mind. That might change in the second one. They do have some iconic scenes, but I don't think he really stood out to me. Like, I think you know what I mean. Like when I think about my fantasy romance book boyfriends, I don't know if he'd cross my mind straight away. Yeah, that would be my only kind of criticism for it, but I think a lot of people will like this. A lot of my friends gave it 5 stars, and I think this is really good. It just had a few things that I think it could have been better on, but I will definitely be reading the sequel. I had to make a swift exit to get to a friend's party, but I'm back, and now we're on to the last book I read in January, which was Queen of Faces by Petra Lord. This is another YA epic fantasy, but what I really enjoyed about this is how unique it was in terms of the storytelling, the conversations that it brought up, and the fact that it was YA but it felt like kind of more mature than that. It felt like it could kind of be like a crossover. You also just get straight into the story. I think within the first 15 pages I was so hooked. I sat down and I read 100 pages all in one go. Also, a moment for this early copy they did. What the hell? I mean, this looks like a bar of gold. This looks like it should be like in the Louvre. It's so pretty. So the premise of Queen of Faces is that it's set in this world where anyone can transfer bodies and can buy a different body if you have enough money. And our main character Anna, she's really poor, she was really sick, and the only body that her mum could afford to buy for her was like the base range, and over time that body is slowly deteriorating. She's also in the body of a boy, and she's a girl, and that I really enjoyed as a parallel to the trans experience, especially, you know, someone who doesn't feel comfortable in the body that they have and doesn't identify with that body. And we get so invested in Anna's story because not only does she need a new body, so she needs to find money from somewhere or she's just gonna die. She also wants to get into a magic school, which is one of the hardest places to get into. She's tried the tests a few times and she just can't get in. But something happens where she actually has an opportunity to not go in as like the top level, but go in slightly below. So she has the opportunity to study magic, potentially one day make enough money to get this body, and you're just so wrapped up in the politics of the world and learning more about what the hell she's going to do. She's also been hired as an assassin, as young people normally are in this kind of situation. So there were so many things going on, and I really enjoyed, like I said, the conversations that this book brought up. My only complaint on this book is that I think there was slightly too much going on, where like there wasn't a clear focus in the story, so you were just constantly being juggled between all these different storylines and you didn't really know where they were heading. Also, there's multiple POVs that keep getting introduced over the course of the story, which then kind of like takes away from what you initially thought would be the focus. So I think that was a little bit jumbled. I think we could have just focused more on the magic school in this because it was so cool, and considering she just got into the magic school, I really thought she would be there more often. Yeah, it was all just a little bit hectic, and then there's this like looming war that's happening in the magic magic world, and I was like, right, we need to let one of these storylines go. We need to just put on pause, bring it in book 2, because I think while this was serving, it was serving a lot on the platter. Things could have been taken off and we could have just enjoyed a smaller selection of things, and I think it would have hit home as well a little bit harder. It would have let us like ruminate on the moments and the conversations a little bit longer, because I feel like there was a romance storyline in this which I found myself not getting too invested in because there was just so much other stuff, and I was like, not to say I didn't enjoy this, I really did. I thought it was so unique, and my favourite part about it was wanting to learn more about the schools. There's 4 different schools within the magical academy. You've got physical, which is elemental magic, manipulation of physics and chemistry, then sinew, which is control of the body, body manipulation, enhancement of strength and speed, praxis, which is mental enhancement, and whisper, which is psychic influence, thought manipulation. And like, they're such cool types of magic which I really wanted to delve a lot deeper on, or at least watch her learn. I still really enjoyed it. I thought that this was a really unique read. I think it's such an important story. I think it's a great option as well if you have a young reader in your life and they want to start reading fantasy. We don't really get a lot of YA fantasy books which kind of have this level of diversity and representation, and it's a conversation starter like this one, so I think it is a really important fantasy book in the space at the moment. It just feels so refreshing, and like I said, it was also very epic in terms of its scope and its world building. I am going to be reading book 2. I just think there was like a little bit too much going on, like I mentioned before. So overall this gets a 3.75 from me. So that was all the books I read in January, and it was a really good month. I had a lot of fun with the range of books that I picked up, but then February came round and I think that I might love February even more. So I decided to start off with The Sun and the Star Maker by Rachel Griffin, because so many of my mutuals had picked this up and they had loved it, and they were like, Sam, you're gonna love it. And I just thought, if a book is being recommended to me with such high praise, I gotta pick it up. So I did, and I inhaled this in like 2 days. It was so easy to read. The writing just felt glorious. It feels like a modern fairy tale, and I think it is one that I can't wait to like share with the younger generation. Like, if I had children, I'd love for them to pick this up. I just think it was so brilliantly done. The premise was great. I just loved this so much. I love the storyline, the characters, the romance, just how this book made me feel. So I rated this one 4.75 stars. I think it was just like kind of just missed out on a 5-star. So let me get into what this book is about and why I loved it. This is set in a village so far north that the sun can't reach it, and when the sun saw the devastation that the frost was causing the people in the village, she was like, oh my god, I can't let this happen. I can't do this to you. I will bestow magic upon one person who will be the star maker, and every day they will drag the sun along in order to make sure that the village can receive the light it needs to keep this deadly frost at bay. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. I love that as a concept. And while the sun is in human form, she also falls in love with the star maker, so it's this kind of like star-crossed love tale. And starting the book with like a little kind of fantasy tale from within the world itself, I think just like really drew me in. It made me feel like I was reading a true fairy tale, you know, and it's like once upon a time. That's kind of how it felt. So we meet our main character Aurora hundreds of years later, and she runs into the current star maker because the star makers kind of like cycle over and hand jobs to the next star maker. And this star maker is like, you have power within you, and I think you're going to be the next star maker. So she is taken with him to his castle where she is the star maker rising, and she has to learn how to do his job. And over the course of the book, she's slowly feeling the transfer of magic from him to her as she preps to get ready to become the next star maker. However, they're kind of falling in love, and there's a clock ticking, so it's so freaking sad. Like, the more that she comes into her powers, the more that he's fading. And I love a heartbreaking story, and you're just like, how is there ever gonna be a good ending to this? And going through their story and what they connect on and their like chemistry, I think it just made this book such a delight. Another thing I really loved about this book is that Aurora, as she grapples with the fact that she's going to become the next star maker and potentially going to live much longer than everyone that she's loved, she is going to love and lose a lot of people. And as someone who like worries constantly about being alone and like losing loved ones, I could really relate to that. I'm always so nervous and I'm always such an overthinker, and I'm always constantly worrying about, you know, bad things happening. And so seeing Aurora like feel all of that on the page but also get out of that cycle and that headspace was like really, really nice to see. And there was the scene where Aurora kind of like looked a bit distant and the star maker's like, stop thinking about things that haven't happened, like live in the moment. I just haven't seen that really talked about on the page, especially thinking about love and grief and loss and belonging in that kind of particular context. I really, really like related to Aurora on that, and I just really enjoyed that aspect. There's also some really fun scenes. So Rachel Griffin really like infuses the magic into every part of this book to make it like a very fun experience. There are snow angels who've come alive and become sentient. There is singing lampposts, and the singing lamppost scene might be my favorite scene in the entire book. When you read it, let me know if you laugh, because I was cackling to myself. I thought that was just absolutely hilarious the way it was playing out in my head, and I can't wait to reread this. And I think the reason why I didn't quite give this a 5-star is maybe my expectations were a little bit too high. This is very much YA. When you go into this, just know that the characters are a bit younger, the writing is very accessible, and not that I wanted it to be darker, because I love the fact that it was quite a light fantasy read, but there was just something about it where I just wanted a little bit more conversation and maturity and a bit more grit to it. Like I said, 4.75 stars, good contender for some of my favorite books of this year. I think I just went into it with my expectations a little bit too high, and I don't blame anyone for that. That's my own fault, but I just wish I went into it blind a little bit without everyone telling me that I was going to love it, because I think that added more pressure when I was reading it. Am I loving it or am I just liking it? So I think that was playing on my mind a little bit. Just know when you go into this one, it's YA and not adult, but I thought that this was a really strong start to February, and I can't stop thinking about it. It was such a lovely book. Oh my god, I think I lied. That was the second book I read in February. The first book actually was The Unmaking of June Farrow. I completely forgot. I read this at the start of February and my brain thought it was The Sun and the Star Maker, but no, I started the month with The Unmaking of June Farrow, and actually this was also a really good start. So I started the month with 2 very whimsical fantasy books, and both I really, really loved. And June Farrow, I think the same thing. I'm giving this one also like a 4.75. Might change to a 5 later on. The more I sit with this, the more I love it. This I have been putting off for a few years just because I didn't know what it was about, and I thought I needed to read Spells for Forgetting before going on to this, which my friend was like, no you don't, they're all like standalones, they don't even interconnect. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to bite the bullet and read it because I think I'm going to enjoy it. And I didn't really even understand what this was about, to be honest, because I'd never read the blurb. And I have that problem, as we know. I don't read blurbs and I'm just like, I don't know what that book is about. So going into this blind was actually really, really fun. And oh my god, I love this. I thought it was going to be more of like magical realism, but this is very much fantasy. There's a fun time travel element. So the premise of the story is that we're following June Farrow in present day, like modern day, and she knows that one day she is going to like lose her mind as part of this family curse. Everyone in her family has always lost their mind a little bit. So that's always been looming over her whole life. It happened to her mum, it happened to every single Farrow woman that's ever existed. And she keeps seeing these hallucinations of things that are almost memories, but she can't pinpoint why. And like there's this red door that keeps appearing to her and she's like, what the hell's going on? One day she decides that she's going to walk through that door, and she ends up going back to like the 1940s/1950s, realizing that the hallucinations she's been having are actually memories from the past. So she gets to explore why it is that she's in this kind of like weird time loop, why she's able to travel, why the pharaoh women always lose their mind. Things don't really make sense for a lot of the book, but you're constantly like finding out the secrets. There's also like a murder mystery that's going on when she gets back to 1920s, or maybe it's 1950s. I'm just saying random years at this point. So when she goes back, she actually is part of like this murdering investigation, which I've mentioned before, but I always like a mystery and a fantasy, so that kind of wrapped it up really nicely. I just love this book. I love June. I love the writing style. I like that this was so different from everything I've ever read, and I didn't see how it was going to be able to end and make sense, but it did, and I absolutely enjoyed this so much. I think if you're someone who likes Rebecca Ross, you like Stephanie Garber, you like, I'm looking at my shelf, you like Adeline Gray, Sue Lin Tan, you like the very like magical type of fantasy books, I think you need to read June Farrow. I can't believe that I put this one off for years, and it's now like a book I'm definitely going to keep recommending like forever. So yeah, 4.75 stars, potentially 5 stars actually, now I keep thinking on this one, but if you see me round up, you'll know why. I decided I'd read enough fantasy, so then I went for My Friends by Frederick Bachman. This was my first ever Frederick Bachman book. I had put this on my 26 books to read in 2026, and I think actually this was also on my 26 books to read in 2026 list, so I'm actually getting through it quite steadily, guys. I don't want to jinx it, but I think I might successfully do it this year. So I picked this one up because I already owned a copy. I did want to read Beartown, A Man Called Uwe, Anxious People. I just had this one first, so I was like, I'll just start here. Lots of people were like, no, don't start with that one, and other people were like, it's amazing. So I really wasn't sure how this was going to land, and I didn't really know a lot about Frederick Bachman's writing, but I'd say from the first 5 pages I fell in love. I fell in love with how funny, how quick, how witty he was in terms of like his small observations, or like just the stream of consciousness that Louisa had just made me laugh so much. But then an unexpected line would come up that really had me in my feels or made me feel really emotional just watching a squirrel. I also went into this one a little bit blind. I didn't really know what it was about, and I completely fell in love with this story within the first few chapters. I also did think, I was like, what the hell's going to happen for the rest of the book? So in short, we follow a character called Louisa. She's had a really tough life and she's grown up in foster care, and all she's wanted to do is see this painting in real life. It's called The One of the Sea, and she kind of breaks into this art exhibition where they're selling all this art, and she pretends to work there, but really she just wants to get a glimpse of this painting. And she sees it and she looks around the room and she just thinks all of these rich people are looking at this painting, seeing a price tag, seeing, you know, just a commodity in a way. No one is actually looking at the painting properly like she is. And when she makes it out of the art gallery, she ends up in an alleyway and she meets this man who she thinks is homeless, and they get talking and they start painting on the wall together, and she realizes that he is the actual artist of her beloved painting. And she's like, oh my god, I will see you tomorrow, I'll come back. And the next day she comes back, but the artist has passed away, and she meets his best friend Ted, who tells her that the artist saw something within her and has left her his painting. In fact, he has used every last penny that he had to buy back his own painting to give to her. And she's just thinking, this is insane. I am just a girl. I'm just a girl, and what am I going to do with this million, billion, trillion pound painting? So she asks Ted, who is the artist's best friend, to tell her more about the artist, his life. You know, go back to the story of the painting, because she finds out that he's actually depicted within it. And there is where the story kind of starts, and you go on this journey through Ted's eyes of what happened to the 3 people within the painting, how they were friends with the artist, and the troubled childhoods that they had, but they all found a kind of solace and belonging within each other. The bond that they have was honestly like truly beautiful to witness in the story. Ted and Louisa, whenever the book flashes back to current day, were just hilarious to follow as well. Ted and Louisa have this kind of like old person, young person banter that I just found so funny. Couldn't stop laughing whenever they had a scene together. About who makes you feel safe and hanging on to the people close to you. You see these characters who would do anything for each each other, but kind of in different ways. We had Yoa, who was willing to get into fights and he'd battle your corner until like the very end. We had Ted, who would just love you quietly and be there for you when you needed, kind of a voice of reason. I loved these characters. I think they feel like my best friends. I feel like I've spent these summers with them. I also think Frederick Bachman really did nostalgia so well. This book is so nostalgic as well for, you know, summer times when you were 14 and you felt like the summer would go on forever, and you kind of feel like you're living in a weird time bubble that will last for infinity, and the kind of sadness that comes over you when you realize that summer's ending and you're having to go back to reality. I think this book was such a delight. It also hit me in the feels in multiple scenes. As I said before, I just think some of Frederick Bachman's observations are really funny. I'm gonna try and find one. There's a scene where a young artist is talking to someone who's trying to convince him that he can be an artist. It says, "You're an artist if you create something. You're an artist if you don't see the world the way it is. If you hate white walls, no one else decides what art is. No one can stop you loving whatever you like. The cynics and the critics can have control of all the other crap on the planet, but they can't decide how hard your heart beats. Become whatever you want, but don't become one of them. Art is a fragile enough light as it is. It can be blown out by a single sigh. Art needs friends with our bodies against the wind and our hands cupped around the flame until it's strong enough to burn brightly with its own power, until it's an inferno unstoppable." And the boy says, "I can't paint the way the art teacher wants. I can't paint things. There's something wrong with my brain." That's because you don't paint things the way they look. You paint them the way they feel. And over again, there were like these glorious conversations that felt like such a lovely nugget of joy, but also would have you in your feelings. And I think I'm just so excited to read more from Frederick Bachman, especially after reading this one. I think I'm going to try and read A Man Called Uwe, or maybe go for Anxious People, because I don't know if I'm ready to commit to the Beartown series because I know it's 3 books. So we shall see, but I gave this book 5 stars. So February has been very, very kind to me. Then I read Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett. I was super excited to pick this one up because I love Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I love that Emily, the main character in that series, she's neurodivergent and kind of like autistic coded, and I loved the way that book was told in diary entries. It felt so cozy, it felt so meandering, but it was also just endlessly entertaining with the romance between her and Wendell. And I just loved learning about fairies. I loved that the main character was a researcher, so we were just learning about the Fae world. So going into this one, I was like, yes! A mystical cat shelter, that sounds so cute. Our main character in this, her name is Agnes, and all she wants to do is save cats off the streets of, I think, Montreal or somewhere in Canada, in like the 1920s. She wants to save these cats off the street, she wants to help them, she wants to find them a home. How wholesome. Even within the first few pages, she's describing all the cats that she has, and I'm like, oh my god, I think I should adopt a cat. I don't even know if I like cats like that. I'm more of a dog person. Cats kind of scare me, but this book like convinced me actually maybe I do want a cat. And we meet her at the beginning where she's trying to find somewhere new for her cat shelter because these 2 magicians ended up having a battle outside her shop and she had to move. So she's looking for a new place to open up her shelter, and then she does manage to find a place, but it ends up being owned by this like wicked warlock who everyone knows to be like an awful person. And Agnes is someone who doesn't like magic. This is almost at a time when no one can really decide if they like magic or not, and if, you know, magicians are good or bad. So she's firmly on the side of like, no, I don't like magicians, I don't want magic. So that's interesting, her having to deal with the fact that her landlord is in fact one of the most renowned evil warlocks of all time. We're also meeting her at a stage where she has lost her husband, and so throughout the book she's also like still in her grief. I guess it just shows that no matter how much time passes, you'll always still feel the loss of them, and she really examines her grief at times, and she's like, why am I so attached to this thing? Oh, maybe it's because this thing meant a lot to my husband, and I want to kind of preserve any link that I can with him. I just found that really, really beautiful, and one of my favourite parts about the book. There is a romance, obviously, between like a budding new romance for her. Love isn't off limits to those who have lost someone before, which I really like also. And Agnes Aubert is older character, so it's almost like, it's just refreshing, I think, to see different types of love and people at different stages in their life, as well as in a fantasy book. There is a bit of romance. It is very much a slow burn. It's very much you're lingering in the small looks, you're lingering in the small moments. Both of these people aren't quite ready for something yet, but the door is slightly ajar. I like that. I like the pacing of that. It felt slow, it felt like it made sense. A very different contrast, I guess, to a lot of books where the romance has to be passionate and it has to be burning and it has to be like, I need you so bad. Like, this book isn't like that. Overall, I'm giving this book 4 stars. I don't think it quite matches the magic of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I love that in this. I think Agnes might have OCD. I'm not entirely sure on that, but she likes lists, she likes order. I think she does have OCD. I'll have to double check, and obviously they didn't label it in the book, kind of leaving it up to your interpretation. I like the world. I think the magic system was sometimes just way too complicated for me to understand, and there's just 2 really big sides to this story. Obviously the cat shelter, and then suddenly like the world is ending, and I don't know if I loved those stakes together. I found myself so invested at the beginning, but it lost me in the middle. I think I almost wasn't that keen on where the story was going. I really thought it was going to be, I wanted more of the cat shelter and maybe less of like the evil brewing magical war threatening to happen at any point. I just didn't love that. I did like the characters and I love the cats. I can't wait to reread this one and see how I feel, because maybe my expectations for the book versus what it actually was giving wasn't what I thought. I think I really, really wanted something like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. The magic system was just a bit too weird and wacky for me to really get it at certain points. Like, I understood that magic could be imbued in objects, but then suddenly it was talking about like the Rivenwood where the magic came from, and I'd be like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. This one gets a 4-star from me. A little bit, I'm like mildly disappointed. And I just think Emily Wilde was just too good to top. A good one from Heather Fawcett. I believe this is a standalone as well, which is refreshing to not have to continue on a series. Guys, I finally read The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon. This one might be my favourite one yet. I keep thinking the Mime Order book 2 was so good, and then this was so good but in a different way, so it's hard to compare them. So we're 4 books deep now into the Bone season. I've got the next book, The Dark Mirror, which is now in paperback, and after that book 6 comes out next year in 2027, and book 7 doesn't have a release date. That makes me nervous, because I'm so into this now that I don't want to wait years, but I guess at least there's only 1 year wait now to the 6th book. And the stakes, oh my god, I feel like the stakes have constantly been high in these books, but now everything is hitting the fan. I haven't started this book yet, I just needed a little break. I started reading this one at the beginning of January, put it down because I thought, let me have a break from the series for a little bit, and then I came back a few weeks ago to pick this up, and it was like crack. I was like, I think the break really helped me, and then I came back to it and I was like, I'm addicted. I'm so addicted to this plot. I'm loving where we are. We're in a different part of the world now. We're seeing more of like this government of Scion and how it's trying to get into like different countries and how it's trying to infiltrate and take over. We're learning more about the supernatural beings called the Rephi. Paige and Octorus, who are kind of like the big 2 in the series, have so many scenes in this that are so tender and lovely, and their romance is kind of like really moving forwards now. I think the flame of their love has been burning so softly since book 1 that this one was the first one where I was like, oh my god, like the kindling is on the fire, the wood is catching flames. I'm having a great time. They have really, really tender and lovely conversations in this that I really enjoyed. This also involves the main character coming into her powers and doing a lot of spying, and the spying made me so stressed, but I was like, I felt exhilarated. I was like, give me more. I just really like where this is going. See, I'm trying to keep this review so vague because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but just know that the plot twists in this were plot twisting. I did not see the things coming. It also leaves on a brutal cliffhanger, and I'm just having the best time ever. Book 1 to book 4, I'd say my ranking so far is like 2 and 4 is at the top. I'm still undecided what I love more. 2 and 4 at the top, then 1, then 3. I did love 3, I must say. But apparently this one is going to be insanely good, so I'm really excited to continue on to that one. I'm giving this a 5-star. It's been a really good month. Then I finished reading An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn, which is book 3 in the Bridgerton series, and this is the book that Benedict season is based off on the Netflix series. So they swapped around the order of the books to do the series in a different order, which I think is fine, but I don't like it. I like things in chronological order, so that just makes me feel a bit uneasy, but it's fine. So I haven't read any of the other books. I know that just goes against what I said about chronological order, but lots of people said I could just read this one on its own, and I thought I don't have time to read them all, so let me just go into book 3. I picked this up mainly because I wanted to read what happens next in Benedict's story, because guys, it's a 1 month wait between part 1 and part 2 of Bridgerton season 4, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous because we have been waiting years, 2 years for this, so why couldn't you have just at least given a 1 week wait, you know? 4 weeks is a bit long. Netflix has been hinting at the bath scene, and I'm like, what is the bath scene? So I wanted to read the book because I wanted to see where the story went. I want to see what they do differently in the show to the book, and I think I'm gonna give the book 3.5, maybe a 3. Like, it was good, but it didn't blow my socks off. I think the show is just so much better. In fact, they have given everyone a better personality, minus Sophie. I think Sophie was brilliant in the book and she's brilliant in the show, so I really liked what Yerin Ha has done with her character. Benedict is kind of unlikable in the book. Well, I liked him, but he doesn't have the charm that Luke Thompson is bringing to the role in the show. So there were so many cringy lines or like cringy things he was thinking, and I was like, please stop, I don't like this. And I get what people mean by the books are, obviously they're like fitting for the time period they're set in. Obviously a man is gonna be thinking certain things. I don't know, obviously I haven't lived in whatever century this is, the 19th, 18th century, but I just felt uncomfy in certain scenes. I didn't really like some of Benedict's motivations, whereas on the show I think he's more caring and he's more sensitive. In the book he's much harsher with Sophie, and I didn't like that. The Featheringtons actually play no part in the books at all. They're barely in it, which is fun to see how much the show gives other people storylines that don't really appear in the book. I think the show is doing that really well. I loved all the scenes with Sophie and all of the Bridgerton siblings and how much they loved her. That really came through, and I am now even more excited actually for the show, because I think the drama in the show is going to be even better than how it plays out in the book. So yeah, I'm going to give this maybe like 3.25 3.5, maybe a 3. I think a 3-star for this. Like, it was fun, it was a good time. Once you've just watched the show though, nothing beats it. So I'll see about reading the rest of the books. I mean, if anyone has any strong opinions if I should read all the books, let me know. I'm kind of tempted, kind of not, because there's gonna be another 2-year wait until Eloise's book, but then again it would be nice to see what happens to Eloise, because she gets with Lord, who's that Lord? Lord Philip Crane! Lord Philip Crane, who we've already met. It'll be nice to see what the book is doing and what they actually do on the show. And when I was listening to the audiobook, there was actually a bonus epilogue. It was like the second epilogue. That was nice. It focused a lot on Posey and Posey's story. Overall, I had a fabulous time, and I'm really glad that I read it. The next book I finished is Training the Heart by Paisley Hope. I started this maybe in December and then I didn't pick it back up, but now I have like all the books in the series, so I'm like, I really want to read all of them, and I can say that I like this one more than book 1. I think book 1 I gave 3.5, maybe a 3, whereas this one I'd give like 3.754. I liked the storyline a lot more in this one. I liked how it explored like women's health, and the storyline where the main character thinks like, you know, she can't carry to term, like carry her pregnancy to term, and the sensitive nature around that. I think it was just handled really well, which I enjoyed. I like the dynamic of Wade being her employer. I think that's always fun. I think their storyline played out really well. I enjoyed this one more than book one, I think, because book one is like flawless in the Chestnut Spring series. It was just a good start, but that is the stepping stone. And I think this one had a stronger storyline, stronger direction than the first book. But I am excited to read the next one. I don't know who Riding the High is about, but maybe Cole and Ginger. So let me know if you have a favourite in this series, if I should be looking forward to a specific book. I do think they're going to get better and better as they go, but I enjoyed this one a lot. The spicy scenes were fantastic. I think like I said, enjoyed it more than holding the reins. I can see why everyone loves this series. There's just something really comforting about it, and it feels that like Chestnut Spring size hole that was left when I finished that series. That was like the gateway drug to cowboy romances, and now I'm just continuing. I also feel like I learned stuff about horses, which I didn't really know a lot about, and now I feel kind of ready to train a horse for a competition. Don't hold me to that, don't hold me to that. And now for the book I'm currently reading is Half City by Kate Golden. I am having the best time. This is an urban fantasy where our main character is a demon hunter, and she finds out that there's a demon hunting school and one of her lecturers is a demon. I am at the stage where they've just had this fight together and the tension is there and it's fantastic. She is grappling with the fact that she has had a lot of like demon hunting experience because she did it with her dad. She witnessed him die in front of her, or like be killed, sorry, in front of her, and she comes to this school and she's like, bro, no one here has any freaking experience. Like, what do you mean you've never hunted a demon? I've killed thousands. So she kind of grappling with that, and as well she's a type of demon hunter where she like feels it in her bones that she needs to kill demons, but she's got to hide that and not tell anyone. I am having a fabulous time. This feels like a callback to 2012 supernatural paranormal urban fantasy. It feels like Jennifer Armentrout's like Stone Cold Touch White Elements trilogy. It feels like Paranormal Sea by Kirsten White. It feels like the Forbidden series by Jana Oliver. Like, I miss this era of demon hunting books. Bring them back. It feels like Shadowhunter Chronicles. It also feels like Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead, because they're at a school and she's falling in love with her instructor, that kind of vibe. If you know Rose and Dimitri, then we can be friends. Off the back of that, also Jennifer Armentrout's Covenant series. Guys, I'm getting right back into 2012 gold. So that's kind of what it feels like, and I'm just having a good time. It feels fresh in terms of like, it's more modern, I guess, and like the language is also a bit more spicy than those books, because all the ones I mentioned were YA. I think this is kind of like new adult / adult. I'm just having a great time. I can't believe I've lived long enough to enter the next cycle of paranormal romances, and I have a really strong ow, just pulled out my hair. Oh my gosh. I have a strong feeling that this is at least going to be a 4-star, maybe 4.5, maybe even 5. So I'm going to see how it goes. I'm currently on chapter 21, so I'm almost halfway. I'm really enjoying it. I'm also hoping that it's in the Fairy Loot box for romancy or adult, because I would really love a finished copy of this book, and a pretty one at that. So those are the books that I've read so far in January and February. I have a week left of February, and I do have a couple books on my TBR. So I'm finishing Half City this week. Also, I need to start Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters, but my hold on the audiobook at the library, I missed it and now I have to wait. So I think I have a few more days until it's available, but I'm really excited to experience this one. This is the one with Tyson, and I just remember loving Tyson so much in the books, and once I saw him on the TV show and on Disney Plus, I was like, oh my god, I've missed you. Like, I want to go back and re-meet you, I suppose, in the story. I also need to start the book of Fallen Leaves with my friend Jenny, but Jenny hasn't messaged me and I haven't messaged Jenny, so I don't know when we're gonna start the buddy read, but maybe this week I will message her. And if I put together my reading vlog for like end of February February into March, I will be including mine and Jenny's reactions to this book. This is epic fantasy. I feel like I've talked so much about reading this and I have not even picked it up, and this is like the 5th time I'm showing it to you guys, so I'm really sorry, but I am really excited to go into this. I haven't read an epic fantasy book yet in the month of February, so I think this is one that I need to start and get into. It has a brilliant premise. It's from a debut author. It's like Japanese samurai retelling. It says A.S. Tamaki weaves a powerful tale of ambition, vengeance and sacrifice in this masterful epic fantasy debut packed with memorable characters, stunning world building and an epic adventure. Say less. So I'm excited to make a start on this one at least. I don't know if I'll finish it in February, but at least I can make a start and share some thoughts with Jenny. I also need to read And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison, which I might start as like a palette cleanser between books. I am really excited for this one and I've seen really good reviews for it so far. I think that's it for my February TBR, and if I manage to at least read 1 or 2 of them, then I've done pretty well with my February TBR list. I'm literally referencing my little checklist, and then we'll have to start picking books for March, and I really don't know what I'm in the mood to read next. I feel like I've had a good spread in January and February. I've also got to keep in mind the 26 books that I put on my list to read in 2026, so that includes books like The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I really need to read this. I have met John Gwynne 2 times by accident and I adore him, and I'm like, please can you sign my book I haven't read? And I was like, please can you sign it to me and my boyfriend, because we're planning to buddy read this one together. So he did. He put to Samurai, which is so cute. This is on my 26 books for 2026 list. I've also got Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Do I start my Robin Hobb journey? I don't know, I'm nervous. And I've got I'm Glad My Mum Died. I want to read One Day by David Nichols. I also want to read every single freaking new fantasy book that's coming out, because I swear there's like 5 a week and they're all on my TBR, and I'm like, how the hell am I gonna ever get through the books that I want to read, because I just keep adding 10 more every day. We'll get through our TBRs. My cart's looking empty. I'm gonna have to find more books to put on it. But thank you guys so much for watching. You can catch me in the meantime on Instagram and TikTok, and I will see you very soon.